to hypertension, which is a major killer. And the high protein diet contributes, they say, to all kinds of cancers. And of course, you know, the sugar and the diabetes. And so therefore, we are a population that need to take ourselves in hand before we have problems. So we are prone to these kind of illnesses, and it's something we have to deal with. So if we look at the next slide, Madam Chairman, you will see an indication of the health insurance payments over the past 3 years or so. Can you get to the next? Okay. In 2018, we paid out $20 billion in health insurance claims. In 2019, it went up to $21.5 billion. And interestingly, in 2020, the year of COVID, it fell. And I have to tell you, it's the first time the health claims have fallen in the past 5 years. What I don't think is an indication of better health. I think a lot of people, because of COVID, avoided going to doctors and avoided going to hospitals. You know, you have some people just love to go to the doctor. They may look to hurt them a little bit, them run go to the doctor, or they run go to the hospital and say they think something wrong with them. So you have a bit of that. So for the first time that I can recall, the health claims went down year over year. There's an interesting statistic on the health claim, and you see it at the bottom there. 1/3 of all the health claims each year are for prescription drugs. And what that says to you is that we are not taking care of ourselves. We are not doing the preventive stuff. We're not doing the exercise. You know, the minister has the health and wellness program and has encouraged us to get up and exercise, and Jamaica moves, get on the move. We have become a sedentary population, and as the new experts say, that sitting is the new smoking. The amount of times we spend sitting, particularly now that a lot of people are working from home and people are sitting more, it is just as dangerous as smoking. So they recommend that every hour or so we get up and walk around the house or walk around the office. You might see some of these new desks that are made where it has a spring and it can actually go up. So there are persons now who buy that kind of desk, and during some parts of the day they stand up and they elevate the desk and they work with the desk up. In fact, I know of an executive who has to be in a lot of Zoom meetings, and what she does is that she does her Zoom meeting standing up with her extended desk. So the point is, we are not taking care of ourselves. So because we are not taking care of ourselves, we always going to the doctor and getting this prescription and that prescription because we are not doing what we ought to do. All right, so let us move to the next slide, please. All right. Critical illness, as we had defined already, has come into the fore over the last, I would say, about 10 years or so. But no, about 30 years. In fact, when it came out first, they used to call it the dreaded diseases, and it only related to cancer. Now companies are competing against each other to see who can cover the most critical illnesses, right? So some people say 16, some people say 21. I don't know what the record stands at today.
30 right? At Sagicor, 30. Where
30
leaders, yes.
Okay, wow. However, the market is finally responding to the need for critical illness insurance, because, you know, we went through a phase where people started talking about insurance is death insurance, and we're not buying any more death insurance. In fact, 60% of all the policies we sell every year are investment linked, right? Because as more people started recognizing that insurance was a good way to invest, and people were amassing quite a good sum of money from their insurance, they packaged investment in the insurance so that when they no longer needed the coverage as they went into retirement, they had retirement income. But the reality of cancer and other critical illnesses has caused a shift in the other direction. And what we have found that more people are buying critical illness insurance for the same reasons as Mrs. Souter pointed out, because they have seen the effect of critical illness and what a claim can do to a family. Many families have been driven into poverty. People have to sell the house, and it creates extra emotional pressure, because if daddy wasn't a good fellow, when the time comes to make the decision, you have to decide whether it's daddy or the house, and whether or not daddy was worth it. So some people have come down on the wrong side of that decision, because to put yourself in that kind of indebtedness, you have to make sure that the thing was more than worth it. So it's more than the health situation. It's emotional pressure on the house and the family meetings and the trumping up of money and all that. And as I said, it pushes people into poverty. So you're jumping just a little bit. I just want to make a point there. Could you go back just one step ahead for that critical illness policy? All right. So I just want to make the point in closing that approximately 25% of all new policies are now critical illness insurance policies. And that was not so, say, 10 years ago. So people are responding, and I think the salespeople are doing a great job. But more importantly, when people hear of the stories of the illness and the money they have to fork up, and hear stories like Mrs. Souter's, where they recognize that there is a solution, people have been moving at it. So what we saw is between 2019 and 2020, there was a big jump in the payout. About 30% more critical illness claims were paid out. So we don't look at it as body claims gone up. What we look at is where more benefits being paid out and more people are getting the value of that insurance policy. So I want to congratulate the sales reps, and I want to congratulate also John Public for recognizing that you need insurance. Because I tell you, I think you probably heard me making that prediction about 2 years ago at Blast Off, that very soon nobody's going to lend you money unless you have a critical illness insurance. Because while they'll take a gamble, that chances that you're not going to die, the chances of you getting a critical insurance is real. 20, 30 years ago, when I was growing up, we never even know who had cancer. Well, we had a little inkling because you hear about somebody have growth or a man have stoppage of water. But we never know about the prostate cancer. And we never know what was happening. Just said the woman had a growth and she went to the hospital and had surgery. And then sometimes she went to the hospital and she never returned. But now everybody knows somebody who has a critical illness. So as I said, it's now part and parcel of us. And so we have been paying out these monies. So it's very important that we get in tune with what is happening. All right, can we move to the next screen? All right, treatment of critical illness. And Mrs. Souter said it so eloquently. And everybody's experience is different, right? So generally speaking, radiation is going to cost you about $1 million, right? And almost everybody who goes needs radiation treatment. Sometimes they don't get chemo, but they certainly get the radiation at the beginning. And it's usually over a 3-month period, and that's $1 million approximately. And the chemo will cost $500,000 about, and again, it depends on the frequency. And I'm sorry we weren't able to hear that story with Doreen Samuels, because the daughter indicated that every 2 weeks she had to go and get treatment. And at the end of the day, she still went, because pancreatic cancer is particularly difficult. So usually when you discover it, there's no early warning that people can discern. Very few cases. I think Aretha Franklin maybe is the best known case. She lived about 8 years after being diagnosed. And Steve Jobs from Apple, with all the money he had, he only made it for about a year or two. So if money could stop that one, he would deal with it. They have been working on some new areas of detection, and they have found some kind of urine test, which is in its research stages, and then maybe we can tackle that one, because more and more of these cases are turning up. Very often, quite apart from the radiation and the chemo, you need surgery. And the surgery can cost anywhere in the region of $750,000. And sometimes you might not do what they call the radical surgery in terms of the breast, but you do a lumpectomy. I hope I spelled it right. And that will run you about half of the money. So any which way you take it, it's a lot of money. And then in some cases, the situation is that you have to operate on the two. And there are some numbers. I was trying to put my hand on it, because one of the problems, we don't have a lot of up-to-date numbers on our own health situation. But I got some information out of PAHO, and it's good information for the public and for you salespersons selling the insurance policy. The highest age cohort where the incidence of breast cancer occur is the age 40 to 50. Not sure why it happens at that stage, but at age 40 to 50, it's significantly higher than 30 to 40, and the incidence goes down in the 50 to 60 category, age category. So bear that in mind. So when you're talking to your policyholders, and if I get hold of the numbers from PAHO, I'll share that with you, because sometimes people like to see the facts, so they don't think it's a sales gimmick you're bringing out. Because one of the things I like, by putting all these numbers on the table, is that you can sit down with your prospect and share these numbers with them and say, this is real, this is what is happening out there in the space. So it's a reality. So now the reality is that critical illness is with us, but there are solutions. If you get it and you have proper insurance arrangements, it will assist you in paying the bills, because critical illness cancer is no longer a death sentence. If you catch it in time, you can manage it. You know, I know people who have been living with various kinds of cancers for a long time. One of the very popular ones, Sandra Samuels, who I know personally, a friend of my wife, and she runs Totally Mail, and she has been very public with her case. She's now celebrating 20 years of recovery. And I can tell you, I remember when she was diagnosed 20 years ago, she gathered all her friends and they went up into here in the mountains. And they had a very moving reception. People came, there was enough accommodation, people just slept in the cars, they brought food and drinks, and there's music and poetry and all that. And then the big moment was when she came up to speak. And basically at that time, she never knew if she was going to last another year. So here she was at this stage, literally almost saying goodbye. It was a very moving evening for all of us. Well, we are now celebrating 20 years after she started her business, got her business growing, and Sandra is full of life, doing all kind of stuff. She just finished her MBA. She went back to school. She expanded her business. She has done so much mentoring. She now has a program going on health matters on her Facebook page, where she advises on all these kinds of situations. So the point is, we need to accept the fact there is life after these critical illnesses, and a lot of them can be reversed with early detection. And this brings me to that next screen, right? And there are two things you have to bear in mind. So you have the big money that you're going to have to spend if you get the critical illness. But if you choose to do the right things, here what happens. Cancer Society charges $5,000 for a mammogram. The pap smear is $4,000, and the prostate screening is $3,500. Does not pale in comparison to $500,000 and $1 million and $2 million. So the message is clear, right? So I'm saying, make screening be a part of your routine every year. Go and find out. Don't make it stay like the people who don't write the will, because them forgive them write the will, them going to die tomorrow. So you're free to go check out whether or not you have breast cancer or prostate cancer. So you don't do it. And remember what Dr. does say. We have the highest incidence of prostate cancer because the men simply just don't go check it out, especially if they fear the so-called digirectomy, which is where the doctor has to actually examine the prostate inside a very delicate place to feel it, to ensure that it is not at a stage where it is swollen. And although the PSA test is a blood test and will give you an indication if there's a problem, the best thing to do is to do both things. And they say that digirectomy is the better one to do. So get your mammograms done, get your pap smears done, go and get your PSAs done and get the digirectomy. Because like I said, if you pay the small check, then you won't have to pay the big one. And then the other smaller check that you need to pay is a premium on the critical illness insurance. But if you pay that little check, when the time comes when you need the help, then you will get that bigger check from the insurance company to help you through it. And what a lot of stress that relieves on you personally, and like I say, your family, right? Because it becomes a family situation. So I think that is almost the end of my sermon. Do I have yes, I think all I have left is thank you. So I want you all to take this thing seriously, and remember, you can change. It's a lifestyle illness, so you can do something about it. Thank you very much. Questions?
Really appreciate you so much for addressing us and giving us the numbers, but I must tell you about that digirectal
Yes.
test for the men. They're really, really scared of it. There was one person I know who he had to do that for his insurance to get through. That was the recommendation from the underwriters. And he said it destroyed him for the day. He had to go home. So he went about 10 o'clock and he was gone home by 11. He said he was traumatized. Well, it wasn't a rough test. It's just that, just the whole.
I have a solution for him, I have a solution for him. There are female urologists, and one in particular who is very famous, Belinda Morrison, is a very attractive lady.
Okay.
So that might help him.
Okay.
Also, the women's fingers are usually smaller than the men.
Okay.
Right? So in terms of the comfort and all that, you can recommend that to your male clients, right? I think there are about 3 female urologists around, or probably more now. So that might be one of your solutions. Right? So you smile with him nicely and say, boy, you're not going to have a nice lady do it for you. Oh, that's so.
All right.
And get that done.
That's a good point.
We have worked on it, and we have done that at health fairs, and it has worked very well.
Okay. Good,
yes.
good.
Everybody start line up. They want to go into the line for the female doctor.
Wow. Wow, thank you for that. I'm going to be taking questions at the end. I have a fabulous lady that I want you to meet, Mr. Johnson. Brought her specially for you to meet her, Mrs. Tanya Powell, yes? Have you met her before?
Tanya Powell, yes, I know that name.
We would have met at NCB.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And look at that smile. Yes. Oh, my goodness. I'm just going to introduce her. And guys, you're going to hear a story that, you need to call your friends now or send the link to them and get them on. All right. She has over 20 years in the financial industry, ranging from commercial banking to wealth management. In her previous capacity as Assistant Vice President and Branch Manager at Scotia Investments Jamaica Limited, her core function was to ensure the success of the branch through effective sales, service, and leadership. And before her tenure as branch manager, in her role as investment consultant, she was responsible for the ongoing management of the sales and retention capacity of the company, and was also responsible for the coaching, training, and development of the sales force for Scotia Investments Limited, one of the largest in the island. She has quite a number of achievements, but I present to you, my friends, my clients, and my bigger friend, Mr. Johnson, Miss Tanya Powell. So she has a lot to share with you. And it's over to you. We couldn't wait to put you on. You know, I skip a lot of things, Tanya, because yes,
I know. Thank you so much. Thank you
yes.
so much, Kadeen. It really is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you for that, Mr. Johnson. There's so much in the numbers, and for Christine, for sharing also. So, similar to Christine, as I am on my journey, I have been sharing my story, my journey, just, in hopes of empowering persons and giving information. And so, Christine started us off with the numbers, similar numbers. I think my numbers that I'm going to share, Mr. Johnson, you probably won't believe them, even though you had that slide. But I want to start off by just saying that one of the things you said, is about life after a diagnosis. And one of the things and the stories that I've been really speaking about is there is life during the diagnosis and during the treatment. And so, I say to persons, let us dare to thrive through it. And that's my story and that's my message. So I, as Kadeen says, I've spent 20 odd years in corporate, in financial, but now I am a certified leadership and personal development coach. And I'm using that avenue to empower and help persons, because the other message that's coming out for me strongly is to live now, not later, live now. And so just to take it back a little bit, my exit, so to speak, out of corporate was really coming to a place of let me just say, mental and physical breakdown, stress. And so, you spoke about, Mr. Johnson spoke about lifestyle, especially from, being sedentary and the foods and that sort of a thing. One of the things that I have come to truly recognize and understand is the role that stress plays on the body. And in fact, one of my coaches and mentor, you might have heard of Bob Proctor. He doesn't even use the word disease. He calls it dis-ease. That's dis-ease in the body. And even as I speak into a counselor, everything is energy. And so when we have all that negative energy, whether it's from work or stress or COVID or whatever it is, it has to express itself some way, somehow. And if we're not finding that way to let it out, it's going to sit somewhere. And so my story is that I think mine just sat in my breast. So, having started feeling that breakdown, I started that shift. But then in 2018, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. And so at the end of Oh, you too, Christine. Yeah. And so at the end of, 2018, quit my job, went up overseas with her to be, her caregiver. And so we spent January to July in the United States, because her tumor was and she has given me permission to share her story in a tricky little place. And so we actually found a specialist surgeon in Los Angeles, and that's where we were. So we came back home in July of 2019, and I'm all set to resume life and carry on. When in October of 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Um, but the thing, and before you really share my numbers, I know there are so many persons who are either on the call, who, know someone or has a family member, or even who themselves have been through. And one of the things my mom and I truly discovered, you've heard it, is your healing process really begins in the mind. And so we created what we called, a recipe for thriving. And whether you're having a physical breakdown as an illness or not, or just managing now, as someone said on the call, she's just grateful that she has a job, because so many persons have lost their jobs due to COVID. What is that self-care? What is that routine, which feeds into what you were saying, Mr. Johnson, to be taking care of ourselves? And so by the time I was diagnosed, I literally said, well, having gone through with my mom, I think I pretty much have a hand on it. Of course, every situation is different, yeah? So, so, why I share my story in that manner, and even as I was going through, someone called me up after I posted a picture of me doing radiation, and I said, guys, I am being infused with superhero awesomeness, because perception, how we choose to look at things, also make a difference. And so I say it's always about focusing on that breakthrough and not on the breakdown, because where our focus goes, our energy flows, and that's what we create. So whether it's illness or not. So in going through, I was diagnosed with and I had to write it down so I could always remember. It's the HER2 positive, ER positive strain of breast cancer. I didn't even know there was such a thing. I would always hear breast cancer and think, okay, breast cancer. Now I learned that um, there are strains. And what I came to understand, that the HER2 positive, ER positive is very prevalent in Jamaica. I think Christine just put in the chat that that's what she was diagnosed with. So I started to do a little bit of research, and it was showing that Black women tend to be HER2 positive, and for whatever reason, we don't know what that is. So with my diagnosis, the doctor said to me, we can have three types: one that's very, very aggressive, one that's not as aggressive, one very aggressive, the HER2, what I had, but there is treatment for, one that's not as aggressive, one that's extremely aggressive, and we haven't figured out a treatment for that yet. So that was good news for me to begin with. Christine has spoken about her personal numbers, but one of the things I want to say is, like so many persons, yes, I did decades in corporate, in investments, in banking. And so I would have been up close firsthand. I would have even been training investment advisors, insurance advisors. But too many times we also don't pay enough attention to our own finances. So we're busy looking after everybody else's, and we forget about ours. So yes, I will also admit that as I was going, as I was going through life, a couple of my insurance policies lapsed, And what I have discovered, and even as I was speaking to persons, is that as we're going and we're feeling good and we're feeling healthy, we figure nothing is going to happen. Yeah. But we don't want to be caught off guard. We don't want it to happen, but we don't want to be caught off guard. So the thing I'd throw in the mix is, you get off this call, and one of the things I know is very difficult when we have to stop and take that snapshot of where we are financially. For some of us who are either approaching retirement, or we are, or we've worked so hard, we find it a little difficult to just stop and acknowledge exactly where we are at and what it is that we need to do, because we may be feeling a little bit embarrassed or, you know, saying, boy, I should be so much further along. So that's one thing. Just stop and get a hold of your financial situation, meaning your entire portfolio, your investment, your insurance, your savings. Because remember now, I spent a whole year, practically a whole year, being my mom's caregiver. So that would have meant no income coming in. And then last year, as I was going through my treatments, right? And with the advent of COVID, that also meant after a while, I had to stop working, but I had my treatments to go to and my drugs to purchase. So my two things now: one, live now, dare to thrive. Two, get a hold of your financial portfolio. And so, just in supporting Christine and Kadeen and Mr. Johnson around critical illness, for me, when I got my diagnosis, what it was, I was also now told we have two drugs that will give you the absolute best shot at getting rid of this thing. I want you to listen carefully. One is called Herceptin, and the other one is called Perjeta. These are two drugs. These are not chemo. The Herceptin, 18 doses, that's $5 million. That's the Herceptin. That's just one drug.
That's the right spelling?
Yes.
Yes.
And please don't ask me how. Yes. The second one is called Perjeta. Now, the Perjeta, after a 20% discount from face commodity, was approximately $652,000 per dose. Like Christine, we were going every 3 weeks. So that's the Herceptin, the Perjeta. What I call the regular chemo costs would range anywhere between $75,000 to $150,000, depending on where you were getting the drugs from. Every 3 weeks. So immediately, I remember the day when my husband said to me, he's managing the spreadsheets, and he said to me, with everything, he said, Tanya, we're over the $10 million mark. Where did a lot of that come from to support me? My critical illnesses. And I must say that, they were paid out like so easily. The critical illnesses that almost lapsed on me because everything was going fine. And what we tend to do is, when things become hard, we look to cut. Where can I cut my expenses? And because you're not using it at this point, then it becomes that easy place to cut. The other place was obviously my health insurance, because then we're also looking at, and Mr. Johnson, you need to update that slide. Radiation is like 2.5 million now. So, and we're not talking about your x-rays, your CT scans, physio after. For me, lymph node removals were involved in my surgery. And so to prevent lymphedema, I now go weekly to get that lymphedema drainage. That's like $7,000 every session. And there's just so much more that comes after that. So it was an easy 20 million in costs. as I looked around, so the other thing that supported me also was that for the Herceptin, the government of Jamaica, if you qualify, actually subsidizes that cost for you, meaning you can get into the clinic, you know, and you get it subsidized. Not everybody gets that. And in fact, I remember that, you know, we know someone who works at the Cancer Society, and he was sharing that the request letters to help with Herceptin was just, you know, pile high on the desk. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, as I was going into the clinic, you know, at UWE on a Friday, there would be Fridays when there are hundreds of us in that clinic. And I remember one day I looked around at my doctor and I said, I'm getting the distinct feeling that it's not the illness itself that's killing a lot of persons, is the inability to afford the treatment, the care. That is what the big thing, and that struck home to me, because I will put my hand up and say that I was so well supported, family, friends. You know, I was able to lean on my own savings. I was able to really lean on my insurance, critical illnesses, the National Health Fund, you know, my health insurance. And so even if you are, so here's, and the other thing that I've also recognized is that persons who are entrepreneurs, who have their own businesses, who are responsible for their own healthcare, tend not to take out health insurance. And that's something I want to encourage you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're your own business owner, if you are someone who works part-time for someone and your health insurance is your own responsibility, please get on top of that and get that going. I remember one day when I was doing chemo, I was actually having a conversation with a nurse. This was such a surprising conversation for me. And she was saying, you know, she deals with persons in oncology. And so she has seen the ravages of this thing, but she has also seen how the health insurance is, how the policies, you know, the payouts actually help people to afford. And she said to me, but you know, I don't have any health insurance. I don't have any critical illnesses. And I was, you know, that was quite shocking to me. And I was asking her why. And she said, well, I work for someone and I think that they should provide me. No. You have to take your own health, your own matters into your hands, right? And so, you know, my simple story now is really twofold. Just stop. We have one life, you know, and it's an amazing life that we have. But we want to be living life from a place that expands us, that feels good to us, that allows us, that's allowing us to express our natural talents and gifts, because that can also help to reduce the stresses that we're feeling. Right now, I'm not telling anybody to walk away from, you know, but we also have to take care of ourselves. You know, my mom and I came up with this daily thing. We would start off every day with prayer and devotion. Then we'd get into meditation, you know, then we get into every day reading or listening to something positive. And so one of the books I highly recommend now when I speak is The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, because everything starts here, every result that we have, right? I remember there are days when if I started to feel a little ill, I'd say, okay, Tanya, what are you thinking that's causing your body to react this way? And chances are I'd be thinking something a little negative because, you know, I'm human. And the moment I started to switch my thought process, I would literally feel my body feeling better and better and better. But what that also does is that it gives you the energy, the will to do whatever it is that you need to do to take care of you, including taking care of your finances. And so even as you say, but things are so tough now. I get it. But it's like, what is it that they say that insurance is like a guarantee for success? You don't want to have to pull on the guarantee. But if you have to pull on the guarantee, it is there. And so, in closing, it's really a threefold message that I have. Really, and I've said to Katie, use my numbers to really help people to understand what it is on an individual basis, because as Mr. Johnson, he's showing us the high level, and sometimes the high level for us look like 20 billion. I can't even relate to that. Christine had a different scenario than mine, so her numbers are different. My numbers also include, I never forget when the doctor said, Tanya, I don't know that there are 6 persons in Jamaica on Perjeta. And I said, well, I get that. How many people can afford? There's another young lady I was talking to. She did 1 round of Perjeta and that was it. So the first thing is, ladies and gentlemen, recognize that it's one life we have. And so we got to live now and live powerfully and live in our power, whatever that needs to look like for you. While you do that, it's also about taking care of your finances. Don't be afraid. I remember the first time I did a personal financial snapshot where I was looking at my net worth, my assets and my liabilities. I think I cried for about a week because I was like, whoa, I am next to broke. What is going on here? But what it did was that it spurred me into action, into taking care of what I needed to take care of. So as you do that, do not allow your policies to lapse. If you do not have your critical illness, if you do not have your health insurance, talk to Kadeen, get stuff in place, because it does get hard, not only for you, the patient, but for you, the caregiver and the support person, right? And the third thing I really want to leave with is also about, as you journey, and Christine, I so applaud you. Don't be afraid to share. We know that one of the things I didn't realize, that there is still so much stigma attached, especially to cancer. I remember someone was crying and saying when she was diagnosed, the first thing somebody asked her was, well, you must be a wicked person. And I was like, what does that even mean? But what I have also come to recognize is that the more I share is the more I am helping someone else on their journey, right? So at the end of it, I just wrap it up in one big thing: dare to thrive and not just survive. And the Mr. Johnsons of the world and the Kadeens of this world are here to help us to thrive and not just survive. And I'm going to leave it right there. But I'm here for any questions that you may have. I think Kadeen is lost.
Oh, well, yes, I
there she is.
disconnected from the laptop. I'm not sure what's happening there, but I'm on the phone.
Great, Tanya. Great story. Great.
Yes,
Absolutely,
I mean, that's such a
fantastic.
moving presentation, and both of you have enriched this meeting and really made it's an eye-opening presentation. And so I thank you so much. But I know that many persons have a question to ask. So you can go ahead and ask a question. You're in your house, I'm in mine, like veranda talk, and we're chilling. And so the questions on your mind, and Christine can answer some as well. And you can say who you want to direct the questions to. We have experts here, right, in the room to help you. All right, go ahead. Oh, somebody says, thank you, Tanya, you're helping me right now.
Awesome. And what I always do, Yeah, thank you. And what I also do, you know, there are so many persons when I share my story have contacted me on a one-on-one basis. And I'm very open for sharing and supporting that way.
Yes, yes, yes. Someone mentioned the price to pay because working with a company to pay half. All right, in terms of pay the shared costs of your
Kadeen, let me explain, try to explain what it is if you don't understand what the question was. What I'm saying is, you have a lot of entrepreneurs who don't do insurance simply because I know my mother, for one. I remember her telling me that, she started the insurance, the self-insurance, health insurance for 1 year, and I think she paid like she had to pay 100 and something thousand up front. And I found it really weird. I wasn't sure if that was true, but the question was, a lot of persons don't do it because of probably the upfront money or the money that they have to pay. Because normally, if you're with a company, the company pays half and you pay half, or the company subsidized for whatever it is. So the money that you have to pay upfront so kind of sound like a whole lot sometimes when you have to take insurance out on your own. So that is what I wanted you to elaborate on and probably explain it a little bit more.
Right. What you have is two scenarios. You have the individual coverage and you have a group coverage. Individual health care is very expensive because there's no opportunities for discount. With the group, there is. One second. I'm gonna have to leave one meeting. Leave one.
All right. If I could chip in a little bit here, I believe the credit union has like a group plan that if you're not affiliated with a company, because most persons buy their insurance through a group plan. And I think I'd indicate, yes. Oh, you're back?
Yes, go ahead. But you can go ahead. You can answer that.
Yeah. All right. So I was making the point that that is one option available. A number of the credit unions have the facility to incorporate people and they get a group plan and it's more affordable. But yes, individual insurance is expensive, especially if you're up for the overseas type. It's a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
And what I would add to that, I totally understand that. And one of the things as persons are perhaps transitioning from their companies, to their own businesses, there are opportunities in there also. But I would also want to say, also recognize you may pay 100,000 for a year, and you find that just a simple bone scan is so much more than that, that the insurance will cover 80% of that for you. We don't want to go there absolutely at all, but if we do and we have that kind of coverage, because my bone scan was what $100,000, and I ended up paying out of pocket, I think it was 20,000 or something to that effect. So sometimes it's also looking at it. So for me, insurance has become an investment. Pretty much, yeah. So explore all possible avenues to getting yourself covered.
Okay. Other questions? Keep it coming.
So is there a insurance that you can, a health insurance that you can put your family on? Do you provide that kind of service?
If you're not an individual plan, and the group one comes with a company, registered company, where you provide your company TRN and the business registration. So The difference is there's a higher cost with the individual plan, which would put your family on, which is spouse and children. That's what family means, right? So spouse and children. And the group one for the employers, we have several options. The minimum is 5%. So you can talk to your employer if you're privately employed. I know the public sector have the teachers and the nurses, the government health plan. So if you're private and there are 5 employees minimum, yes, you can get the group insurance plan. But the group plan goes to one extent in terms of it will help you to go to the doctor to find out what has been diagnosed, but to treat and to deal with the cost of what you need to get better and to be on this journey, living like Tanya is, you will need a payout, an injection of cash, which only comes from a critical illness plan. So I put the number in the chat for you to just WhatsApp me or send me your number. There's a registration form for you to send your number, but you can always WhatsApp me on the 423-1932, and you'll get 3 options to choose. All right, so 423-1932. More questions? Any questions for other questions for Mr. Johnson? The man with the figures.
I just want to make another comment in terms of the focus on the lifestyle. And it's important that we spend more time reading about nutrition. We have adopted a lifestyle which, if you really examine it, we came here for the most part on a slave shift work. So therefore, you needed a high starch diet to work all day. We are not working all day in the sun hot like we used to, but we still want a whole heap of rice and dumpling and yam and all that. We can't burn it off. So it gives us all kinds of problems. So in terms of taking action, we have to also do something about our lifestyle and the sweetness. There are a lot of things that we eat that we ate because the slave masters never ate it. So we got the what left, so we learn how to spice it up and make it taste good. And we say that is our food. But you have to, again, examine what you eat and look at your lifestyle, look at the exercise, cut down on the sugar, cut down on the starch, and all that, and take care of yourself. And again, the early detection is critical. So go and do that mammogram, go and do that PSA test, you know, do the colonoscopy, and I'm speaking to myself, I haven't done one, but I've done most of the other things. And, you know, you get the heart checked up, do the executive profile every year so that they can test the bloods and the urine and the stools and they pick up things long before they happen, right? A lot of things just start gradually. They don't just emerge on you like that, all right?
All right, so.
Kadeen, if I could just add to that,
Yes, go ahead.
especially for, I mean, I can speak from a woman's perspective. I know there are men on the call. One of the things that, as I'm having discussions too, as women, we feel the differences in our bodies a lot of times. We know when something is off, we know when something is wrong, and we tend to do a little bit of self-diagnosing. You know, I knew something was off for me, and I kept saying, "Oh, this feels like early menopause." You know, and I just kept saying, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be," and I started to make a little joke out of it, and saying that, and adding to what Mr. Johnson is saying about doing your mammograms and the pap smears and you know, PSAs, and so do your self examinations. That's how I found my lump. And, you know, one of the doctors actually said to me, every time he asked someone, was it the mammogram that picked it up on one of your routine checks? 90% of the persons actually was doing self exam when they found a lump. And so that is also very, very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well to Mr. Johnson in regards to lifestyle. We also have to be mindful about stress, because there's a lot of our environment has a lot to do with our health. And we can exercise and we can eat right, but if we don't manage stress, and that is where mine came from, because I was a gym buff. My diet was pretty flexible. I don't think I ate as badly as a lot of people in terms of starch and, you know, stuff. So I explored my foods and stuff, but I also incorporated a lot of fruits and vegetables in my diet as well. So I had a very balanced diet, at least so I felt. But in regards to my situation, I honestly don't think it had anything to do with foods per se. It was stress, and I was stressed from 2017. And as Tanya said earlier, that your body don't know what to do with it, so it's collected somewhere and it stays there and it starts to, you know, manifest there. Because when you're stressed, there's a hormone that it sends to your body, and because of that, it causes a lot of, you know, diseases and viruses and stuff like that. So we have to be very mindful about how we live our day-to-day life. The key to everything is that you have to have joy and peace in any situation. We always have to make sure that we are on positivity. And in doing so, it still doesn't exclude, because as I said, when it came on to my insurance lapsed that same year it lapsed. And as Tanya said, that was one of the first things that you tend to cut when the money not coming in. How how it is, you're like, okay, I don't need to use that because that's not necessary right now, right? But who feels it knows it. You have to be, once you're in the situation, it's like you learn. It feels you feel it has a different, it touches you a different way. You know, you're able to say, wow. You know, somebody on the outside really can't understand. And this is why they refuse a lot of insurance, because they're not in the situation. When you're in the situation, you have a different experience. You have a different look on life, a different look on everything at all. But as I said, managing stress. As I said, I was stressed out from 2017. I didn't know how to handle it. I know I just get up and I cry. Every night I go to my bed, I cry. I wake up, I cry. And it was self-examination. I wasn't even self-examining myself. I just felt the big lump in my breast and I was like, whoa, what is this? Mind you, I was 7 months pregnant at the time. So I'm like, maybe it's my milk duct, kind of clog up. And I'm like, but that don't even sound right. And if I hear anybody have that kind of diagnosis, your milk duct clog and you feel that big lump. So, and of course, the last person I wanted to say it to was my mom, because she's a warrior. She worries more than I do. I mean, she felt because I have an older son that is 8, he's turning 9 next month. And she felt my pain during while I was having baby. I'm a little bit more tolerant when it comes down to pain. But I mean, through my process, and I found out about the whole thing. I tried, the last thing you want to do before you do the ultrasound and the biopsy, say, God, just make it disappear. Don't let it be what it is. Please, God, just make it disappear. But your journey, your pain didn't, to know how I look on life is that my pain didn't come to kill me, but it came to strengthen me. Because I have a totally different outlook on life, to the point where I felt like I wanted to sell insurance to show you how listen, because when I know that once I tell people my story, they're going to be like, well, I never called cancer on myself. I was ashamed when I found out. I was very ashamed. I didn't want nobody to know. But I had to I said, I didn't cause this on myself. I didn't give this to myself. So with me sharing, it took a while for me to actually be able to talk about it publicly, but it came just in time, and God really worked on me for me to be able to talk about it, because this isn't just me. My journey isn't just for me, it's for other persons as well, you know. So it's always best to take the necessary precaution. You want to ensure that you are covered in case of anything, because the way how the environment and our environment and everything is going on right now, any card can play, anything can happen. So you want to ensure that you are protected to the best. Money might not save you, but it will cushion where it can. And of course, you know, we stay prayed up. Thank you.
Yep. I want to add one thing to that before we go. Anger, they say, the doctors say, release certain things in your body that make you unwell afterwards. And so persons who have a problem getting angry, find a different way to deal with those problems, because what you're doing is that you're hurting yourself when you get angry very often with people or even with yourself. It's not a good thing.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. Any doctors? Any doctors on? What are nurses? Where are the nurses on the Zoom? What's the name of that hormone release? So we can call it by name. That when you're stressed.
The endorphins.
Oh, okay.
Is that the endorphins that lift you up?
No, I think it's called cortisol.
Cortisol, okay.
Yes.
The stress hormone. Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Wow, this is any more questions before we're gonna wrap up now? And just so you know that I will be, just send me that WhatsApp. 423-1932 is the number. I'll send you 3 quotes and you can upgrade what you have. You know, knowing the realities now of the numbers, you got the numbers, you got
the money going up.
Yep. Let us, yes. And Mr. Johnson will be correcting this slide of those figures. Oh boy.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I will be doing this session again next year to see what is the impact of the in terms of COVID and the experiences in terms of death claims and all of that. We're gonna be looking at those numbers again. You see, we never know what can happen, but we have some things in our control in terms of doing our mammograms. And I must say, it was in the past, you have to fight for an appointment to do your mammogram. You have to make the arrangement. It might be 2 weeks down the road and reserve that slot. But now, Radiology West in Montego Bay has opened it up. You can just come in and do your mammograms. Just that maybe the word went, oh, the machine is down now. I checked today and it's still down, but it should be back up soon. And you can just walk in, ladies, and do your mammogram. Take your health cards with you and you can get that done.
Okay. Also, the government has 2 cancer facilities, one in Montego Bay and one in Kingston at St. Joseph's, and they have a machine that gives treatment. But as you can imagine, the waiting list is long. So they can do some stuff at about 50% of the commercial persons, but it's hard to get in.
Right. Also, it's $4,000 at the Cancer Society.
Yeah, just for the test, right? So deal with the prevention. Right. But what I'm saying, for the cancer treatment, they bought machines about 2 years ago, 2019, brand new machines. One is at Montego Bay. I'm not sure where in Montego Bay it is, and there's one at St. Joseph's.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. So it's $7.5, and with the health card, you'll be paying the 20% in terms of the cost for the mammogram.
Another question.
NHF helps with drugs.
Yes.
Right.
Another question, Kadeen, is there another alternative to mammogram? Because you have persons like me who we don't have any breast to put on the machine. I mean, in terms of before, you have persons, because normally it's persons who have what you call it, bigger boobs are able to do mammogram. Is there another alternative? I think there should be another alternative.
Yes. I think Dr. Williams mentioned it. I'm not sure if he's
Dr.
on.
Williams, yes.
Andre Williams, are you on?
Yes.
Yes, I don't think he may, but yes, we can find out what that alternative is from Dr. Williams, and I will. That was funny.
They have they examine men too, you know, breast cancer.
Right.
Ronnie Twaits has breast cancer. I had breast cancer for many years, and I just lost a close buddy of mine. I really feel it because he retired and was kicking back, he and his wife. And 2 years after, he was diagnosed with breast cancer. And he got treated, figured all was well. In fact, he had a policy, overseas policy, because he worked there for a while. Went to the top place, Sloan Kettering Institute, came back, thought he was well. Came back on it with a vengeance. Buried him 3 months ago.
Wow.
After his retirement, looked pretty, you know.
So men, get your checks as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
So none of us is exempt. We all have work to do. So there it is, guys. This session is just for us to put our act together and set our house in order. I haven't even collected the homework from last session. The last session was on a will preparation and estate planning to see who has contacted the lawyer to do their wills or to sort out mommy's or daddy's estate, or started consultation on that. And now we have the information that there's a reality of the high cost of the treatment. And so we have to take heed and put in place your critical illness plan. If you think you can't be bothered to spend so much money on critical illness and still it might not. Like one lady said, young girl, she said, was someone who was arrested for drugs. And I said to her, why did you do that? And she said, well, they normally say out of every 10, them catch about 4, and I'm one of the 6. So there are some persons who do those deliberate calculations. For example, the vaccine, some persons would say, well, herd immunity is 60% and I am the 40. So persons who have already calculated and said, I'm not going to be infected. But you just never know, guys. So just be wise and do what you have to do, right? And so we have the responsibility. So more information gives us more responsibility. All right, so thank you, my wonderful guests, Mr. Johnson, Mrs.
My pleasure.
Powell, Mrs. Souter. Yes, God bless you.
Thanks for having me.
Powerful ladies come for this story. I'm going to contact you because one of the things we're trying to do now on the IAJ website is to have persons give testimonials. Because too many people don't talk about it.
Yeah,
so
I'll be happy.
Something, conversations with Insurance. So Tanya, I'll get your number and call you.
For sure. And last week, I mean, I really have been doing it because last week, Saturday, I was actually on a virtual stage with Les Brown, just sharing the story. And just to wrap up, KD, when I speak about Dare to Thrive through it all, last year, as I'm going through my treatment, as I'm laying in the hospital bed, as I'm sitting at the chemo, I'm doing my journaling, I'm thinking about my life, what it is I want to do. And that's what's happening now. That's what's going on. It's about going for it now. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to wait until, something happens. Let's just start going for it. Figure out what it is that you want and give it your best shot. I mean, wow. I was on the stage with Les Brown. That's like,
that was Christine. Both Christine and Tanya are prepared to share their stories. All right, we're gonna do that.
Very prepared.
Empower people. Yep.
Okay. All right. So thanks a lot. And we're going to end this session now. So I'll
Alright.
just stop live stream.